Today, we are going to talk about motherhood in the novel Sula by Toni Morrison, and how they teach their daughters strength and survival, and defy cultural stereotypes. Let's start with the central mother in the novel, Eva Peace. Eva had 3 children with a man named Boy Boy, who left her 5 years later. When he left her in November, Eva had $1.65, 5 eggs, 3 beets, and no idea of what or how to feel. Eva's children are Hannah, Pearl, and Plum. When Boy Boy left, she didn't know what to do, and she was one of the only black families in the town. Eva struggled to care for her children with the little food and money she had. She left her children with her neighbor, saying she would be gone for a few days, but she returned 18 months later with only 1 leg. Later on, Eva takes in orphan children. Operating on a private scheme of preference and prejudice, she sent off her children she had seen from the balcony of her bedroom, or whose circumstances she had heard about from the gossipy old men who came to play checkers or read the Courier or write her number. Through her adoptions, her family grows to a number no one can even remember. Eva has a unique mothering style, and she's criticized for it. She loves her children dearly and never wants them to suffer. She even sets her son, Plum, on fire when he's suffering from a heroin addiction. She rolled a bit of newspaper into a tight stick about 6 inches long, lit it, and threw it onto the bed where the kerosene-soaked Plum lay in snug delight. Quickly, as the whoosh of flames engulfed him, she shut the door and made her slow, painful journey back to the top of the house. Eva kills her son because she cannot bear to see him suffer from the addiction. Later, she even admits to Hannah why she killed him the way she did, when she says, "I done everything I could to make him leave me and go on and live and be a man, but he wouldn't. And I had to keep him out, so I just thought of a way he could die like a man, not all scrunched up inside my womb, but like a man." When it comes to Hannah, her firstborn, who is healthy and has a daughter of her own, Eva does everything she can to stop her death. When she sees Hannah burning in the yard fire, Eva knew there was time for nothing in this world other than the time it took to get there and cover her daughter's body with her own. Eva makes multiple rash decisions in her parenting, but by doing so, she defies stereotypes. No mother would ever dream of killing their children, but Eva sees her decisions as necessary and understands the true well-being of her family members. She ultimately decides to end suffering whenever she can, even if that means sacrificing her last food or her child's life. Finally, Eva can no longer be a mother of her own, and she locks herself away at the thought. Her granddaughter Sula becomes her legal guardian, so Eva locked her door from then on. When Mr. Buckland came by to pick up the number, his mouth sagged at the sight of Eva being carried out and Sula holding some papers against the wall, and the bottom of which, just above the word guardian, she very carefully wrote, "Miss Sula May Peace."
Lastly is Helene. Helene's mother, Rochelle, was a prostitute. Her strict religious grandmother, Cecile, raised her until she was 16 and married Wiley Wright, who was the right man. She establishes a respectable home and comfortable position in the black community for herself and her daughter Nell. Helene can be characterized as someone who tries everything in her power to live up to the expectations imposed on her by her upbringing and environment. Due to her mom, she feels the need to flee from her hometown and marry an outsider of her community. Once settled in the bottom, Helene tries to live up to the expectations her grandmother inflicted on her. Helene was a woman who won all social battles with presence and conviction of the legitimacy of her authority. She lost one battle, the pronunciation of her name. The people at the bottom refused to say Helene. They called her Helen, right, and left it at that. The metaphor of the town not being able or wanting to pronounce her name correctly shows that they did not want to adjust to her standards because she insults the bottom by bringing in her new, proper manners. Not only does Helene take on many different responsibilities, she also manipulates her family to feel as distant from her family and background as possible. She enjoyed manipulating her daughter and her husband. She would sigh sometimes just before falling asleep, thinking that she had indeed come far enough away from the sundown house. By doing this, Helene can escape feelings of disgrace and live an ethical life. Helene leads a moral and respectable life because it is motivated by her own fear of rejection by society. Her life may even be more of a refusal of her former life than an assertion of her new one. Helen's relationship with her mother influences her behaviors and identity and has forced her to power her daughter's life more than it has her own. Helen has tried to make her aware of her plain looks by saying that she was happy that the child had not inherited the great beauty that was hers, that she had taken the broad, flat nose of Wiley, although Helen expected to improve it somewhat, and his generous lips. Helen does not accept the way her daughter was born and how she looks, so she attempts to pull her nose with a clothespin, creating a gap in their mother-daughter relationship and forcing Nell to become more self-conscious of herself. The miscommunication between Eva and Hannah Peace is also seen in Helen and Nell Wright. On the train ride down to the funeral, Nell becomes conscious that her mother wants to live a well-thought-of life, yet it is easily put down by variables such as racism. As the rest of the train ride is told in Nell's perspective, readers get to see the effect of the experience on Nell and how she perceives her mother. This shows how a mother truly does have an effect on her daughter, but also how influenced African Americans are by the racial factors in society. By Helen attempting to live above the standards in the bottom, she is discriminated against by whites in her own community. Her discriminatory life affects the communication between her and Nell, showing that by Helen and her mother having a lack of communication affects the relationship between Nell and Helen and how much they share with one another. The trip affected Nell in that she changed by the conductor humiliating her. She felt an emotional distance between her mother and grandmother. She begins a new way of life by saying, "I'm me. I'm not their daughter. I'm not Nell. I'm me." She has come to realize and see how her mother has failed in life by manipulating her family, not adapting well to society, and not having a decent relationship with her own mother, therefore affecting her relationship with her own daughter, Nell.